Welcome to the Libra podcast, where education leaders explore the intersection of culture, strategy, and innovation in today's schools. I'm your host, Nate Lichte, and in each episode, we'll uncover the leadership habits, systems, and bold ideas that help districts thrive. Alrighty, Gustavo, thanks so much for joining me today on the Libra podcast. Excited to have you on and have you kind of introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you've been doing.
Well, thanks, Nate. I'm Gustavo Balderas, currently superintendent of schools in the Beaverton School District. It's a west side suburb of Portland, Oregon. About 38,000 kids, 54 campuses, diverse area, diverse community. About 113 languages. 60% of our kids are from ethnically diverse backgrounds, so it's a really diverse area. Nike headquarters, where Nike's founded, where Nike headquarters, world headquarters is right around the corner. And we're also an Intel computer chip bedroom community. So we have a lot of engineers and people that work at Intel here in my community. So this is my 35th year in education. Just say 35 years, 15 years as a school superintendent. Been a superintendent in California, Washington State, and in Oregon. Yeah. And I'll be here this year in Beaverton, then heading up to the Seattle metro area, where I'll be superintendent of schools for the Puget Sound Educational Service District that services about 425,000 kids.
Wow.
And so I'm supporting the school districts that support those kids. So working with those superintendents to see how I can help provide an asset from the ESD to help them be able to carry out their missions.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, thanks so much. So I'm curious, you've got a unique background and story. I mean, I'd love for you to share sort of a little bit about how you ended up in education. Where, what was it like growing up, and then how did that all kind of come to fruition that led you to the education leader you are today?
Thanks, Nate. So my story is a story of like many kids that grew up in the '60s and that were migrant workers. So my parents were migrant workers they were from Piedras Negras, Coahuila, Mexico, which is northern Mexico, right across the Rio Grande from Eagle Pass, and about 3 hours south of San Antonio. So northern Mexico, the state of Coahuila, and the whole extended family would travel and work the fields, the agricultural fields, follow the season. So we'd start in California, work our way up the 5. Actually, we worked the 99, the 99 highway through Fresno, Madera, and coming up through Oregon, the I-5, and Washington State. And I was actually born when my family and extended family, grandparents, uncles, aunts, were picking strawberries at Mount Vernon, Washington. So I was born there, and then we were driving back to work the root crops through Eastern Oregon. Root crops are potatoes, beets, and all sugar beets and so forth. Clean the beet fields, and I was ill, and they settled in a small town of Nissa, Oregon, which is right on the border of Idaho. And they never left. I lived in a migrant camp. There used to be a Japanese internment camp, and stayed there and went to school in Nissa. So I graduated from a small town in Nissa High School, and but just blessed to have quality teachers. And I think one of the things that I always reflect back on is this kindergarten and first grade teacher I had, Mrs. Dorothy Bivens, in Nissa, and I had her for a loop. So I had her for 2 years. And I spoke, and I was kind of a hot mess growing up. So I stuttered very badly. So I spoke no English, of course, but really spoke no Spanish either. I stuttered badly. So, but Mrs. Bivens reached out to my family, who spoke no English, and they really built a relationship. And Miss Bivens spoke no Spanish. So, but she cared, and my parents knew she cared. So I think that got my parents to trust the U.S. educational system. And that was really my first educational experience, being in public schools, and went K-12 in the same system. But really always reflect back on that teacher, because she had a really tremendous impact, not just on me, but on my family.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a similar story where the reason I got into education is I had an IEP teacher that worked with me very intentionally. And that led me to wanting to have that same impact on kids and continue to grow. You were president of AASA. You've done a ton of work with ALAS, the Association of Latin Superintendents. So when you think about like your personal story when advocating for educational policies and resources for underserved communities, how does that influence you?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. So I'll say that from the start. I'm past president of AASA, immediate past president. I'm also immediate past president of ALAS, Association for Latino Administrators and Superintendents, and a great superintendent Alex Morero is president now, and doing a phenomenal job. Proud of Alex and the work he's doing, superintendent out of Denver Public. But I think all that and really it's being at the table, being at the table, being invited to be able to be in those conversations. And growing up, who would have thought this country kid who was an EL kid? I was an ESL back in the old days. I was in a pull-out program in a hallway, how I learned English, would be around these tables, getting invited to the White House, getting invited to be president, or being asked to run for presidency of AASA, and also for ALAS, and doing that at the national level. I mean, who would have thought a migrant kid would be able to do that, right? So I think I'm living truly the American dream, the whole bootstrap story, coming to the States with nothing at all, extreme poverty. Again, it's a story that many people have, but being able to be at the table and having a voice for people maybe who don't have a voice.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm the first. I've always been the first Latino superintendent in the 5 districts I've led so far, and it's just been a blessing and been surrounded by great quality people that have helped support me. So in 2020, the work that we did when I was superintendent in Eugene, Oregon, led me to be named National Superintendent of the Year. And any award is never a single award. It's not a me award. It's always a we award, because no one ever accomplishes anything by themselves, right? Yeah. So my board allowed me to have a great team, and I've been able to hire really well. So people, and because I let people do their jobs. So I'm going to answer your question, but for me, it's all about the structure of how you run your systems. So hire the very best people that are work ready, meaning that, hey, I'm going to hire you. I'm going to let you do your job, but you're going to do your job. Yeah. And then make sure there's clarity of expectations. And with that, we close gaps. I mean, our overall graduation rate when I was in Eugene improved by 18%. Our African American, I think by 31, kids that were identified in special programs, 29, Latino, 27% in those 5 years. And 40% of our principals were leaders of color in Eugene, Oregon, which is roughly 25% population of color. So we were able to do great work in a short period of time and be able to replicate that system over and over again to the success of kids. So again, it's just, but answer your question about how I got there. And to me, sometimes I've been lucky. I've been lucky to be able to be in the right place, and I've been really fortunate to have people believe in me and my work.
Absolutely. I want to go back to something you just said that really stood out to me, which was you were speaking about the work that you've done to hire great teachers. So what strategies have really proven most effective in recruiting, retaining teachers, specifically bilingual teachers for these special programs that you've built and those different things?
Yeah, first of all, you need to have a plan. I mean, literally, you need to sit down, have a plan, and you may need to spend some money on that plan in terms of recruiting, whether J-1 visas or just putting a word out there, but having systems. So, for example, do you have a student affinity system to become educators? And is that system, and are those kids reflective of their overall student population, right? Do you have a classified employee system to become teachers? And do you have a teacher pipeline to become administrators? Right. So, and are you working closely with specific universities or colleges to make sure that you have a pipeline association path for that university or college in your state? I think those are simple things that you can do, but you need to have a plan, and you need to measure that plan on a regular basis. Like, how many kids are in your Teach to Your Future program? How many classified do you have in your aspiring teacher program? And how are you supporting those staff members to become teachers? Because what you'll find is classified is a perfect it's a perfect example, because classified are already in your system. They're already in your community, and they're more likely to stay and not bounce from district to district, but within your community if you have a program. And then once you get them, Nate, you need to be able to support the staff that you have. So whether through mentoring programs or other supports, we have an affinity group networking program as well. If you're a person of color, to make sure that we're meeting your needs. So just make sure you ask the teachers what they need, and then give them what they need.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge piece to build that sense of belonging, right, in the district.
Yeah.
And how you continue to grow that through affinity programs, so everybody feels seen, valued, and heard in the district, and in any organization for that matter. When you've built these programs, you talked about building the pipeline, and you talked about retaining these teachers. What role has building a healthy district culture kind of played into that, and how have you've done it successfully in multiple districts? What are some of the pieces in building that healthy culture has led to that?
It's really knowing your North Star. So every system needs to have a guiding light in terms of what you're focusing on, and articulate that. And I think it's sometimes it's easier than sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. The hardest people to change are adults, me included, right? Adults have habits. We have habits. I have habits. You have habits, and we're hard to change sometimes. So when you come in, is how do you get people to own what we're doing? So here, we have an articulated K-12 curriculum now. We have an assessment framework. We have interventions specific for, primary, intermediate grades, middle school and high school for math, reading, and behavioral supports for kids. That wasn't here in the past. That wasn't here in the past. So, and those are basic structures of what is a successful school system. Every healthy, successful school system has what I just described. So how do we get people to own what that looks like here in this district, but in any district? Yeah. Because again, there is a secret sauce to school improvement, but how you get there, I think that's part of the secret sauce. You need to make sure you bring people together and be staff created, and then staff are your biggest champions when they see it working.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I always like to ask folks this question, especially sort of midway through the podcast, but before we jump into future, where you're going and kind of the things you're working on next, and just kind of those different things. But is there a specific leader, whether past or present, that you sort of looked up to or found inspiration and inspires you, and why? Is there someone that you kind of look to as a leader that you take sort of insights and advice from?
I've had many, and I think that's another thing I would add to any aspiring superintendents. Find your people. Find the people that you trust are going to mentor you and sponsor you and be your ally for your career. So it starts off when I was early. I was co-founder of the Association for Latino Administrators here in Oregon. That was like 24 years ago. That was a long time ago. Over 2 decades ago, we started that. It was myself and Carlos Perez, who was a deputy in Hillsborough. And before I became administrator, I was a teacher and counselor in Hillsborough, Oregon. And I met with Carlos, who was the highest ranking Latino in the state of Oregon at that time in terms of the big districts. And I said, I really want to be an administrator. And he spent time, Nate, for 2 years meeting me for coffee once a month at 7:00, once a month. And we just talked about dreams, aspirations. And he took the time. I mean, he was a deputy superintendent of the 4th largest district in Oregon, but he took the time to spend with me to walk me through a path. Yeah. Right. And so he was one, but the other one was Stan Paz. Dr. Stan Paz was superintendent of Tucson and El Paso as well. And Stan, when we helped create OALA, the Oregon Association for Latino Administrators and Superintendents, Stan would come to our conferences. He was in Tucson at the time, but he was always the strongest supporter of me, but also the organization. So he showed up. He showed up and he stayed and he was supportive. And you see that with people, they just don't talk. They actually show up. Mm-hmm. And they actually coach you, and they're there for you. It's heartfelt, because showing up's half of it. But he's connected and was always, and he's long retired now, but I'll always remember those two people.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. When you think about the future, I mean, you mentioned, transitioning to Puget Sound. How are you preparing for this transition from leading a single district to overseeing, an educational service district serving nearly 300 schools and districts across, how do you prepare and put that transition plan together?
So it's I think it's 35 school districts, but
Mhm.
425,000 kids that are in those 35. It's all Seattle metro area, so it's King County and Pierce County. And I'm excited just for the opportunity. I've never worked in a service district, and I know every state calls it differently, whether you're in
Yeah.
Pennsylvania and you're in an intermediate unit, or a BOCE in New York State, or County Office of Ed in California. Uh, but I'm excited just to be able to support superintendents in the great work that they're doing. And also, my background, my 35 years of experience at being an educator and 15 years as a superintendent. And I, I think my hope is to be able to share my experiences to make it a better experience for them through my knowledge, and be able to just working together in terms of, hey, what do you need and how do I help you?
Mhm.
And how do we work together to be able to do that together? Because there is power in scale, right? There is power in scale. If all 35 folks have an issue, a concern, well, I could be the unit that brings it all together with them, with their input, to create it and be able to support them in any action that they need. So I'm
Yeah.
excited about that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited too. When you think about like relationships, right? Building the community, building those relationships, that's a huge piece of it, which you've successfully done in districts, and putting all those things in place to ensure that, there's continuity in Beaverton's progress during your transition, and then looking at, going to Puget Sound. So how do you build those relationships? If I'm an early aspiring superintendent trying to build those relationships, especially caring for sort of a transition plan, what advice would you give to somebody who's doing that?
I think just taking time to reach out and spend time in getting people to uh, to get to know them and their needs. And here in Oregon, our statewide executive director for our administrator unit here in Oregon mentioned to me that there's over 190 new superintendents the last 6 years out of 197 districts
Mhm.
in Oregon. So that's almost complete turnover, right,
Wow.
in the superintendency seat. So, and I think what I just said is not uncommon across the United States. So to me, is making connections and building relationships is critical in anything you do. I think it always starts off with relationships. So it starts off getting to know people and what they really are. What's their passion for the work? How, what is their vision? What are their goals and dreams and aspirations? And see how you can work with people together. And me being a tenured superintendent, I was that 22-year-old teacher, 21-year-old teacher at one point in time. I was that rookie superintendent. And I remember how I felt going into meetings and having a sense where I don't belong here, because these are all people that are experienced educators,
Mhm.
experienced superintendents. But, having people wrap around me when I was a young superintendent, I think that's the goal for all of us, is wrap around the new superintendents to make sure that their success is your success.
Yeah,
So and we need to keep people in the seat,
yeah,
and we need to mentor and coach them, because we need to keep people, because you can't do the work if you're behind the seat. So how do you keep people in the seat, and making sure that we're there to lend an ear when needed, but also to provide input when needed as well.
yeah, absolutely. Which really connects to a lot of the work you've done with the Association of Latino Administrators and, other superintendents. Like you've helped create some of those pathways, I think, for emerging leaders. How, if I think about other leaders who are looking to get into that work, to creating those emerging pathways, which you kind of mentioned at the beginning, is there, is there a particular challenge that stands out in the work that you've done there, or specific insights that, you would share with other folks to help, other leaders continue to grow this next generation of emerging leaders?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of programs out there, and there's also a variety of affinity programs. I know that Alas has one, NABSE. There's all sorts
Mhm.
of players, and I don't think we can have. We need to continue to have more. So I think one of the things is just making sure that whatever program you get into is the right program. But that's the program. Find your people that are around you locally to help support you. whether it's your like local leaders, local associations to help you in that path. Because once you get through a program, you need to be able to land the position and keep the position.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your support network, whether it's personal or professional or both, and making sure it's strong and that you're very networked, because it makes a difference. It makes a difference. If I have a problem now, I can call someone in Florida, someone in Texas who's not here in Oregon to say, hey, I know I'm in a bubble here, but what do you think? And they're honest with their feedback to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what I've experienced. That's what I've grown to have now after doing this for 15 years. So it's just not any administrative program, but it's a support network as you get through that program and land your first job or second job, and to be able to problem solve through a professional PLC, a professional learning community of your peers, to make sure that you're able to grow and stay and make a difference for kids.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. When you think about the future of education, what are you most excited about? Whether it's a piece that's still playing out and coming to fruition, but when you think about, you're making this transition to work with and have even more impact on a larger group of students and work with more leaders. What is that piece that kind of gets you very excited or optimistic about the future?
I think what I get really excited about is that our public schools, and our public schools are the best asset in America. They're our strongest asset in America because they're going to produce our future and make our future better. So I get excited to be able to have the opportunity to work with 35 outstanding superintendents and also other charter schools, parochial schools, tribal schools, mm-hmm. to make an impact on kids. And also, I'm excited to be able to help be a sounding board for those superintendents based on my experience and learn from them as much as they learn from me. So I'm really excited about trying. Again, it's something new for me. So I'll let you know in a couple of years. See how it all goes out. See how it goes. But I'm excited just to try another opportunity to be able to leverage all the talents, all the things I've learned and been coached the last 35 years and something different. Because again, the job is the hardest job I've ever had, being a superintendent, but it's also the best job I've ever had. Yeah. It is literally the best job I've ever had, because I know I'm making a difference for my 38,000 kids here right now and my 6,000 individual staff members that I have in Beaverton schools. And I get excited about that, because tonight, it's Friday night. Guess what's happening tonight? I'm going to go to a football game.
Yeah.
And kids are playing football. They're playing. You know what? When I first started, I coached football. So it's the same. It's just 35 years later, different type of kid, right? Yep. Different. And the equipment's better now, though. So, but it's still Friday night football, right? And I can go watch a cross country match, a volleyball match, and kids are still being kids.
Yeah,
that's the power of public education. Is the times are different, but kids are kids, and mm-hmm. adults and teachers are teachers, and really we're all in it just to make it a difference for our kids.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, Gustavo, thank you so much for just sharing your time with me, chatting with me a little bit about the work that you've done, what you're looking forward to doing in the future, and just being, frankly, a leader that other aspiring superintendents across the country can look to be that sounding board, as you put it, and just advocating for kids across all different backgrounds. That's a huge thing for all of us, I think, in multiple communities. If someone who's listening to this podcast wanted to, find you or stay connected with some of the work that you're doing, where could they go to do that?
My LinkedIn, I respond quickly, but also, just my email, or I also give my phone number to anybody. So a lot of people have my phone number, which is great because that's why you give it out. So just email me and I respond back. Again, our job is to help each other, because the work is hard. It's not getting any easier, but it is incredibly rewarding. And I think you just need to find your people wherever you're at. And sometimes it's good to have people outside of your local bubble, because because you do get groupthink. So reach out if you ever need anything. And I think you'll never find a superintendent that will tell you not to reach out.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Nate. Thank you.